Is your personality who you really are, or is it what you learned to survive childhood trauma? In this video, we're going to explore 5 personality patterns which are shaped by trauma. One of the big mysteries around childhood trauma is how does it show up in our lives now? It's almost like we normalize to the experiences that we have, which often then asks a fascinating question. If we hadn't had those traumatic experiences, who would we be now? What would be possible in our lives now? What would be our ultimate potential? Childhood trauma is ultimately experiences that happen that overwhelm us. There are 2 types of childhood trauma. There's overt traumas, what might classically be referred to as adverse childhood experiences. Things like physical abuse, sexual abuse, having an incarcerated parent, being neglected. But there's also covert trauma, these much more subtle experiences that we may not label as traumatic, but they impact us, they shape us. Maybe one day at school we got super excited, we put our hand up, we got the answer wrong, the class laughed and the teacher laughed. We went home and we were upset, and our upset was rejected. We weren't allowed to have the feelings and emotions that we had, and we learned that our feelings and emotions are either not important, perhaps even something to be afraid of. And then through our life, through this and many other experiences, we've learned to not feel our feelings and our emotions. So childhood trauma is these events, these experiences, also the context within which they happen, and how they shape us in our lives now. Often the things that cause us the most suffering in our lives now are the attempts that came forward to manage and navigate those experiences. One of the ways that I talk about it is the walls that we build to keep us safe, the walls of defense we build to protect us in childhood, become the walls of the prison that trap us in our adult lives. These 5 personality patterns are in a way 5 different ways that we learned how to survive and navigate those childhood traumatic experiences that worked well enough that we survived, but may well be one of the things perpetuating our suffering in our lives now. If you can see it, you don't have to be it. The more awareness we have of these patterns, that can help us to break free from them. So we'll go through these one at a time, and then we'll talk about some of the ways that we can learn to break free. Now, as we go through these 5 personality patterns, please do share in the comments which of these you resonate with. We can have 1, 2, 3, 4, or all 5 of them. So the first one is the achiever. This is where we learned that our safety, our sense of feeling loved is tied to what we do and what we achieve. There's a constant pressure to do more, harder, faster, and when we don't feel like we're achieving, we can often feel unloved, unsafe, and so on. The second is the helper. This is where our sense of safety, our sense of feeling loved is tied to what we do for other people. We're constantly rejecting our own feelings and needs to take care of and be there for others. The third is the anxiety pattern. This is where our mind is constantly working, constantly racing. We're trying to think our way to a feeling of safety. It's like what we learnt in childhood was the world didn't feel safe, and so our mind sped up to try and anticipate and predict the world, to try and find a feeling of safety. The problem is you can't think your way to a feeling of safety. You have to feel your way. Number 4, the perfectionist. This is where our sense of feeling safe and feeling loved is tied to doing things right. There's a right way and there's a wrong way. And if we're on the wrong side, the world doesn't feel like a safe place and we don't feel that we're loved as we are. We can find ourselves putting enormous pressure on ourselves to constantly try and get everything right. The fifth of these patterns is the controller. This is where we learn in childhood that for the world to feel safe and for us to feel loved, we have to be in control of everything. Control of ourselves, control of our feelings, control of other people, control of the environment. We can spend enormous amounts of stress and anxiety trying to control all these things that may well be out of our control. So we have the achiever, the helper, the anxiety, the perfectionist, and the controller. You could have 1, 2, 3, 4, or all 5 of these patterns. So what can we do to break free? Well, number one, as I said a little bit earlier, if you can see it, you don't have to be it. The more awareness we have of these patterns, as we see these patterns playing out, we can catch them and we can stop and we can reset our system. In a way, just how we trained ourselves to use these patterns, we have to train ourselves to do something different. And when we feel the impulse towards one of these patterns, it's not about making it wrong or making us wrong. Remember, these are the walls of defense that we built in childhood to survive. The problem is they may now be the walls of the prison that are trapping us now. We also want to learn how to find more effective ways to meet our core needs. That if what we learned was we have to achieve to get love, well, what if we can love ourselves as we are? In childhood, we are dependent upon those around us to take care of us. We develop these strategies to survive. As adults, we can discover new choices. So if you found this video helpful, please do subscribe to my channel. There's more videos coming in this series, but also I have a series of filmed therapeutic journeys. This is me working with people on their healing journeys to heal the impacts of childhood trauma, but also to unlock their true potential. So do subscribe to be notified as new videos are released.